What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday AM coffee. Going to do a little break from our normal series we've been working through on the positional breakdowns. This is dropping the day before the scouting combine starts. We're going to have Paul, Connor, Will, Dan on the ground in Indy. So an exciting week. It's been kind of quiet comparatively to the last 57 weeks of Jets football, if not longer than that. And I'm going to take a breath and answer two very specific questions we got in our Discord. One about quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, and one about Aaron Glenn. Also, give a little bit of a state of the state on our business, our Badlands business, and our live show. All good stuff. So, it should be about 15 minutes or so. Next week, we'll pick back up, continuing to work through the Jets roster. And we're also going to be getting closer and closer to our free agency guide, our free agency preview, and everything that's going to come with the first week in the league year, which is always one of the crazier weeks here. If you haven't yet, check out Streets of Fire. We're 4 episodes in. Last one ran Friday with Jason Fitzgerald. Episode 5 tomorrow with DJ Bienemy. Episode 6, the conclusion, Friday with Dan Hansis. Those are all available at War Room. If you don't want to upgrade to War Room, you could just buy the package of episodes and maybe upgrade anyway so you get to the Discord. We can answer questions like this. Been awesome to see how well Streets of Fire is received. We may dabble and do a 7th episode that's more reflective on the Muji and Glenn hires. TBD. Anyway, first question. I batted this one around a little bit. We got our guy Izzy in the Discord, who's our resident Rodgers nut, and I wanted to give him the time to answer this question. So, what would have been your thoughts if the Jets announced they were going to keep A-Rod for one more year? Also, if somehow A-Rod goes to the Rams for another contender this year, and the team does well, does this reflect poorly on Aaron Glenn and the new regime? Beyond this question, there's a lot of this chatter. Not a lot. Maybe there's a subsection of Twitter and other Jets social platforms that are like, Rodgers is working out. Look how good he looks. This is the biggest mistake they ever made. How could they not need him? And I think to the first question, if the Jets had announced they were going to keep Rodgers, I would have been very surprised. There's a reason I was bouncing between 20 and 25%. I don't think we knew anything officially, but when you do what we've been doing here for as long as we have, you get a sense of where the wind's blowing just from talking to people and just feel. And this has always kind of felt pretty over, I would say, since the Cardinals game last year. And I probably hedged even more than I should. For a long time, I was saying 5 to 10%, and then I let myself climb up to like 20 or 25%. And I should have stayed at my initial percentage. Now, if they announced they were going to keep him, it wouldn't have been the most shocking thing I ever heard. And I would have done what every Jet fan would have done, because I'm a Jet fan first and foremost, not I guess it's Jets fan media. I don't even know what it's technically like classified as. I would have rooted like hell for him, and I would have been honest that I didn't agree with it. And I think there's going to be some clunkiness and starting a new regime, and feels like a half measure. And it just didn't logically line up to me. If he was out there week 1, I would have been rooting like hell for him to prove me wrong and go 10-7 and lead the Jets to a wild card upset. It's not a one-to-one comparison, because Rodgers is a great football player who'll be a Hall of Famer, and Adam Gase is a terrible coach. But I think back to, I was very, very vocal in not wanting the Jets to hire Adam Gase, and I was furious when they hired him. Not unique. Many Jet fans were. I was at the game week 1 when they played Buffalo, when they were up 16-0, rooting like crazy and being like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just completely off on this one. And trust me, I wanted the Jets to go 12-5 that year and make the playoffs with Adam Gase, even though it would have made my take wrong and made me wrong. I think when you're younger doing what I do and others do, you're much more concerned about the Twitter points and being right. And as you get older, you just want the team to win, and you feel you care less and less about being wrong. So I would have rooted for him. I never really saw it happening, which is why I was kind of pretty consistent in being like, I kind of know this is already over. I get why it's over. I actually do personally agree with it being over. So that's kind of guided how I've discussed the whole thing the last couple of months. I don't want to speak for everyone else who does shows in this feed, but I think many are in a similar boat. If he goes to, I don't think he's going to go to the Rams. I could be wrong, but I kind of feel like when it's all said and done, Stafford stays with them. And if it's not Stafford, I don't know. I don't know if I see that happening with Rodgers going there. I feel like Rodgers is going to wait until someone gets hurt over the summer and like move late. I don't know if he's going to like sign to a team in the next few weeks. If it's not going to be the Steelers, and I feel like the chatter out of there has been not interested, there's not really like a lot of logical places. I'm not, maybe the Rams, but after that, like, is he going to the Titans? Is he going to the Raiders? I don't know why he'd want to do that. I feel like he'd want to chill and wait and see if there was an injury. I don't think the Vikings are going to happen. Now, if he goes somewhere else and plays really well, yeah, it's probably not going to look amazing on the regime. It's going to depend how the Jets play, though, right? If the Jets look a lot better than they did last year, and instead of being 5-12 with Aaron Rodgers, they're 8-9 or 9-8 with Tyrod Taylor or something comparable, and Rodgers goes to the Rams and is pretty good, and they're 8-9 or 9-8. I don't know if that's necessarily a terrible reflection. I think you got to look at it at a wider lens. And what do the Jets look like in year 2, 3, and 4 under Aaron Glenn? And Rodgers is probably retiring after next year. I'd be shocked if he played more than 1 year. So you can't get too hung up on that. We've had somewhat recent examples of this with Darnold and Geno, which are not necessarily fair to the Jets because Geno went to multiple other places before he settled into Seattle, and he just became a different player and seemingly a bit of a different person than he was early in his career. And I think it's awesome. He's had success elsewhere, and it's easy to knock the Jets for a lot of things. Like Geno, I don't. Sam, kind of similar. Like Sam was not good when he was here. It doesn't mean that he didn't have flashes and he wasn't talented. And he wasn't really that good in Carolina. He had some nice moments and then he fell off and wasn't great there. And then he was a backup for the Niners and found his way into a great situation. And then I like Sam, and he's going to start somewhere next year and deserves to get paid. But when push came to shove down the stretch, he looked like the same guy he was with the Jets. He was pretty damn bad. So I don't know. You can't worry about that. It just didn't make sense from a timeline perspective. And we don't have to beat the dead horse because it's over already. New head coach, new general manager, new number 2, number 3 in the front office, new offensive coordinator. You're going to have meaningful roster turnover. You tried it with the old regime. Didn't work. You had the injury season. You had the bad season where you go 5-12. Very hard to maintain a 42-year-old as the center of your universe while you're trying to establish a new culture. I don't think there needs to be hard feelings. Like you can feel how you feel about Aaron Rodgers off the field and as a person. From a football POV, I don't think he did the Jets dirty or anything, or the Jets did him dirty. It worked for both sides. The transaction made sense at the time, and it just, when he got hurt, the whole timeline got screwed up, and the whole thing really died that night, which is a damn shame. But that was it. He was too old. If he was 34, then it's like the window's a little wider. But at 40, when you have that injury, the timelines got skewed and the coaching was too bad. And here we are. And I'm excited about Aaron Glenn. And the other question I got on this was, effectively, I alluded to in this week's pod being particularly enthusiastic about Glenn due to some off-camera conversations we had with some of the interviews we did. And it's not just one, right? There was a couple of things I alluded to when we interviewed Damian Woody. We've done a decent amount of interviews recently, thanks to Streets of Fire, which, again, we're not an interview-heavy podcast. So beyond the interviews, just in regular life and sports media life, where Connor and I and other people work, you just talk to people and fish around. And how you feeling about the hire? How's Glenn been around the building? And this is not uncommon when there's a new hire and it's a well-liked guy who has a good reputation in and around the building already. But the feedback's just been very encouraging. And I'm going to continue to use the word authenticity a lot when I'm talking about Glenn. Now, him being authentic does not mean he's going to be a great head coach and is going to be the perfect contrast to Robert Saleh and he's going to be the next Bill Parcells. That being said, I think it's an important leg up and differentiator from the entails of the previous regime. I think he will come through much more authentically with the culture building and the messaging that he tries to bring. I think there's an added credibility element from him playing in the league and playing as an undersized guy who was a playmaker. I think he's scouted. I think he's shown more intellectual curiosity in his football history on the other side of the football, despite being a defensive guy. And I feel he comes across, or I've heard he comes across more authentic than some of the, and I'm not blaming Saleh for this because I think Saleh is a really good defensive coordinator and probably a good dude and just didn't work here. And by the end, I did not love how he carried himself and went about the job here, but it's a hard job and it just didn't work out. I just feel like sometimes you go back to some of the hard knock speeches and some of the all gas, no brakes and the stares. It sometimes would feel like he was like playing a certain character. Like if you were watching one of those shows on TNT that reenacts like a football team. I forget what channel, like the Aaron Hernandez stories on, or some of these other ones where like there's like a guy depicting an NFL head coach. I feel like he would sometimes could come across that way. Doesn't mean he was a bad coach, but I'm just optimistic about Glenn. Glenn was a hire I wanted for a long time. This was like, oh my God, now all of a sudden I love the Glenn hire. Similarly to some of the Rodgers stuff, if it wasn't going to be Vrabel, it kind of always felt like it was going to be Glenn. He wanted the job. The Jets liked him a lot. It was a very long, meandering process. It was a guy that I feel like a lot of us were kind of anticipating, and for good reason. So I'm optimistic about the head coach. Maybe that proves to be wrong. I was optimistic for a time about Robert Saleh. Was never optimistic about Adam Gase. I remember I was kind of like meh about Bowles when they hired him, and he had the great first year, and then it got ugly quick. And I was very fed up with Rex by the end of his tenure. I'm thinking back in my head to all their coaches, but the early days I was excited. So that is your Rodgers and Glenn chatter for your Sunday AM coffee live show update. And this is good and exciting thing. So we've sold out 200 tickets. Originally, this was going to be in 100-person thing that we were going to do in the basement of Printer's Alley. We sold 100 tickets in like a week. So we're like, oh, might as well keep selling them. And then we sold 200 now. And we've mutually agreed, obviously, to move upstairs at the bar and sort of work out the open bar arrangement that we have and cap that at 200, both from an open bar price POV and from a space POV, because, it's a bar, not a theater. We want as many people as possible to have as good of a view as possible. Of course, we're working through all the considerations of audio and TV in the building and all that good stuff. And I do think we'll be able to sell some more tickets, not inclusive of an open bar, but we want as many people to come as possible, because beyond, the live show, which is going to be a couple hours of the 3-hour block that we have, we're just going to hang out all night. All of us who, host, all of us who get to talk in the Discord. It's a kind of a rare thing that we all get together. We hang out from time to time, but we're all adults and it's kind of all over the place. So I look forward to this. Doing the podcast is going to be fun. I'm excited we have some different members of our extended Jets fan family who will join us on stage and do different segments. And I'm just glad all 7 or 8 of us who host Badlands shows will be in the room at once to be able to talk. But I'm also excited, just to be able to hang out with everyone who listens to the show and interacts. And we don't get to do that enough. We're not an event-oriented company. We've dabbled here or there, and they've been fun. This is a bit of a different level for us and a different step for us. And I'm as optimistic about anyone when it comes to this and what we're building. I was shocked that we sold that many tickets, and in a good way. And now we have a lot of time to kind of map out. We can't just walk up there and talk for 2 hours, right? We want to come up and organize it a little bit more so than we do some of our recordings, which I think works well in this format. But I think when you got everyone chilling in a bar, we want to do some more stuff. So there'll be some other announcements coming. We have some other sponsors that are going to be involved. We'll have giveaways, merch table, and everyone will be there, which is exciting. And I look forward to, again, meeting everyone who interacts with this stuff. As I said this week, Streets of Fire Monday and Friday, other guys Monday, podcast Tuesday, War Room Wednesday. Flight Plan should be back this week. Draft season, Buck the Trend, TOJ Talks. Guys are on the ground in Indy. I'll harass them to record something while they're there. Make sure you're following us also on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, Patreon. You'll see all this stuff everywhere. Appreciate everyone who's watching on YouTube. It's been cool to have this channel grow. I'm rambling and carrying on now for your Sunday AM coffee. Last reminder, and then I will shut up. We're still rolling with Underdog, so use promo code Badlands and get a deposit match. Hockey, basketball, our best ball drafts will start up again soon, and obviously very nice and helpful for us if you use the promo code Badlands for our growing relationship with Underdog. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday. I will talk to you soon.